night bus rolled through the darkness, scattering bushes, wastebaskets, telephone booths, and trees. Harry restless and miserable on the feather bed. After a while, Stan remembered that Harry had paid for hot chocolate, but poured it all over Harry's pillow when the bus moved abruptly from the Anglesa to Aberdeen. One by one, the wizard and witches, dressing gowns and slippers, descended from the upper floors to leave the bus. They all looked very pleased to go. Finally, Harry was the only passenger left. Right then, Neville, said Stan, clapping his hands. Whereabouts in London? Diagon Alley, said Harry. Righto, said Stan. Hold on tight, then. Bang! There was another thundering along the Claring Cross Road. Harry sat up and watched the buildings and the benches squeeze themselves out of the way for the night busway. The sky was getting a little lighter. He would lie low for a couple of hours, then go to Gringotts. The moment it opened, then he'd set off. Where, he didn't know. Aaron slammed on the brakes and the night bus skidded to a halt in front of the small, shabby-looking pub, the Leaky Cauldron, behind which lay the magical entrance to Diagon Alley. Thanks, Harry said to Aaron. He jumped down the steps and helped Stan lower the trunk and the Hedwig's cage onto the pavement. Well, Harry, bye then. But Stan wasn't paying any attention. Still standing in the doorway to the bus, he was goggling at the shadowy entrance to the Leaky Cauldron. There you are, Harry, said a voice. Before Harry could turn, he felt a hand on his shoulder. At the same time, Stan shouted, Blimey, Aaron! Come here! Come here! Harry looked at the owner of the hand on his shoulder and felt a bucketful of ice cascade into his stomach. He had walked right into Cornelius Fudge, the minister of magic himself. Stan leapt onto the pavement beside him. What'd you call Neville, minister? He said excitedly. Fudge, portly little man in a long pinstripe coat, looked cold and exhausted. Neville? He repeated, frowning. This is Harry Potter. I knew it! Stan shouted gleefully. And guess who no Neville, it's Anne. Addie, it's Harry Potter! I see his scar! Yes, said Fudge testily. Well, I'm very glad the night bus picked Harry up, but he and I need to step inside the Leaky Cauldron now. Fudge increased his pressure on Harry's shoulder, and Harry found himself being steered inside the pub. A stooping figure bearing a lantern appeared through the door behind the bar. It was Tom, the wizened, toothless landlord. You've got him, minister, said Tom. Will you be wanting anything? Beer? Brandy? Perhaps some porter tea, said Fudge, who still hadn't let go of Harry. There was a loud scraping and puffing from behind them. Stan and Aaron appeared carrying Harry's truck and Hedwig's cage, looking around excitedly. Oh, we didn't tell you where you are, Neville, said Stan, beaming at Harry, while Ernie's owlish face peered interestedly over Stan's shoulder. And a private parlor, please, Tom, said Fudge pointedly. Bye, Harry said miserably to Stan and Aaron, and Tom beckoned Fudge towards the passage. Bye, Neville, Stan called Stan. Fudge marched Harry along the narrow passageway after Tom's lantern, and then into a small parlor. Tom clicked his fingers, a light burst into life at the gate, and bowed himself out of the room. Sit down, Harry, said Fudge, indicating a chair by the fire. Harry sat down, feeling goosebumps rising up his arms, despite the glow of the fire. Fudge took his pinstripe cloak and tossed it aside, and hitched up his trousers of his bottle green suit, and sat down opposite Harry. I am Cornelius Fudge, Harry, the Minister of Magic. Harry already knew this, of course. He had seen Fudge once before, but he had been watching his father's invisibility cloak at the time. Fudge wasn't to know that. Tom, the innkeeper, reappeared, wearing an apron and a nightshirt, bearing a tray of tea and crumpets. He placed the tray on the table between Fudge and Harry and left the parlor, closing the door behind them. Ah, well, Harry, said Fudge, pouring our tea. Ah, you've had us all in a fright flap. I don't mind telling you, running away from your aunt and uncle's house like that. I started to think. But you're safe, and that's what matters. Fudge buttered himself a crumpet and pushed the plate towards Harry. Eat, Harry. You look dead on your feet. Now then, you will be pleased to hear that we have dealt with the unfortunate blowing up of Miss Marjorie Dursley. 2 members of the Accidental Magic Reversal Squad were dispatched at Privet Drive a few hours ago. Miss Dursley has been punctured, and her memory has been modified. She has no recollection of the incident at all. So that's that. No harm done. Fudge smiled at Harry over the rim of the teacup, rather like an uncle surveying his favorite nephew. Harry couldn't believe his ears. He opened his mouth to speak, but couldn't think of anything to say, and closed it again. Ah, you're worrying about the reaction of your aunt and uncle, said Uncle Fudge, or said Fudge. Well, I don't deny they are extremely angry, Harry, but they are prepared to take you back next summer as long as you stay at Hogwarts for Christmas and Easter holidays. Harry unstuck his throat. I always stay at Hogwarts for Christmas and Easter holidays, he said, and I don't ever want to go back to Privet Drive. Now, I'm sure you'll feel differently once you've calmed down, said Fudge in a worried tone. They are your family, after all, and I'm sure you're fond of each other, very deep down. It didn't occur to Harry to put Fudge right. He was still waiting to hear what was going to happen to him now. So all that remains, said Fudge, now buttering himself a second crumpet, is to decide what you're going to spend the last 3 weeks of your vacation. I suggest you take a room here at the Leaky Cauldron and— Hang on, blurted Harry. What about my punishment? Fudge blinked. Punishment? I broke the law, Harry said. The decree of restriction of underage wizardry? Oh, my dear boy. We're not going to punish you for a little thing like that, cried Fudge, waving his crumpet impatiently. It was an accident. We don't send people to Azkaban for just blowing up their aunts. But this didn't tally with Harry past dealings with the Ministry of Magic. Well, last year I got an official warning because a house elf smashed pudding on my uncle's house. He told Fudge, frowning. The Ministry of Magic said I'd be expelled from Hogwarts. There was if any more magic there. Unless Harry's ears were deceiving him, Fudge was suddenly looking awkward, or eyes were deceiving him. Fudge was suddenly looking awkward. Circumstances change, Harry. We have to make an account in the present climate. Surely you don't want to be expelled. Of course I don't, said Harry. Well then, that's all. What's all the fuss about? Laughed Fudge. Now, have a crumpet, Harry, while I go see if Tom's got a room for you. Fudge strode out of the parlor, and Harry stared after him. There was something extremely odd going on. Why had Fudge been waiting for him at the Leaky Cauldron, if not to punish him for what he'd done? And how, now, Harry, come to think of it, surely it wasn't usual for the Minister of Magic himself to get involved in matters of underage magic. Fudge came back accompanied by Tom, the innkeeper. Room's 11 free, Harry, said Fudge. I think you'll be very comfortable. Just one thing, and I'm sure you'll understand. I don't want you wandering off into the Muggle London, all right? Keep to Diagon Alley, and to Back Pier before dark each night. Sure you'll understand? Tom will be keeping an eye out for me. Okay, said Harry slowly, but why— Don't want to lose you again now, do we? Said Fudge with a hearty laugh. No, best we know where you are. I mean— Fudge cleared his throat loudly and picked up his pinstripe coat. Well, I'll be off. Plenty to do, you know. Have you had any luck with Black yet? Harry asked. Fudge's fingers slipped on the silver fastening of his coat. Ah, what's that? Oh, you've heard. Well, no, not yet. But it's only a matter of time. Azkaban guards have never yet failed, and they are angrier than I've ever seen them. Fudge shuddered slightly. So I'll say goodbye. He held out his hand and shaking it in sudden idea. Minister, can I ask you something? Certainly, said Fudge with a smile. Well, third years at Hogwarts are allowed to go to Hogsmeade, but my aunt and uncle didn't sign the permission form. Do you think you could? Fudge took a looking uncomfortable. Ah, he said, no, no. I'm sorry, Harry, but I'm not your parent or your guardian. But you're the Minister of Magic, Harry said eagerly. If you gave me permission. No, I'm sorry, Harry. Rules are rules, said Fudge flatly. Perhaps you'll be able to visit Hogsmeade next year. In fact, I think it's best you don't. Yes, well, I'll be off. Enjoy your stay, Harry. And with that last smile and shake of Harry's hand, Fudge left the room. Tom now moved forward, beaming at Harry. If you'll follow me, Mr. Potter, he said, I've already taken your things up. Harry followed Tom, the handsome wooden staircase, to the door with a brass number of 11 on it, which Tom, unlocked, opened for him. Inside was a very comfortable looking bed and highly polished oak furniture, a cheery little crackling fire, and perched on top of the wardrobe. Hedwig! Harry gasped. The snowy owl clicked its beak and fluttered down onto Harry's arm. Very smart owl you have there, chuckled Tom. Arrived about 5 minutes after you did. If there's anything you need, Mr. Potter, don't hesitate to ask. He gave another bow and left. Harry sat on his bed for a long time, absent-mindedly stroking Hedwig. The sky outside the window was changing rapidly, from deep velvety blue to cold, steely gray, and then slowly to pink, shot with gold. Harry could hardly believe he'd left Privet Drive only a few hours ago. He wasn't expelled, and he was now facing 3 completely Dursley-free weeks. It's been a very weird night, Hedwig. He yawned, and without even removing his glasses, he slumped back down his pillows and he fell asleep.